Hi everyone, it's Maria back from J'adore le papier. Today I am trying take 2 of this video after a long day of trying to edit. I have to redo a lot of the parts and cobble together, so hopefully I can still make a short video for you. I went over the flip through of the stationery set yesterday. This little kit that I made following Eva's tutorial on bohemian crafting. The only last piece I have to add to it is this little prayer card, which came from France. Catherine at French Billet Doux sent that to me, wanted to include it for the bride. And then I did go over the actual dress greeting card that I made based on a dress that the bride or the fiance of my cousin has worn. So hopefully I can cobble that together. And I also went through this tuxedo envelope, which had the sample invitation and sample menu in it, so hopefully I can salvage that. But what I want to review today is the actual book, the altered book. It's a 1954 interior design book, fairly large. It's 14 inches tall, about 11 inches wide. The spine is now 2 inches. Originally the spine was just under an inch. And there's the original spine. I did sew a pretty thick velvet ribbon to expand on the spine and strengthen it. So I had to use a pretty thick one to be able to accept the weight of the pages. And then I was able to salvage most of the both end papers as well as most of the pages. And then I kettle stitched it together to give it a hollow spine, actually 2 hollow spines, because I was thinking she could put a magazine in here. But after I stuffed it with fabrics and paper, I don't think she'll be able to do that unless she removes some of the items. Anyway, I'll go through the book really fast. I did want to keep it pretty grungy, so I just patched it up with fabrics and wallpaper where I could. Again, reinforce some of the stitching, but I did leave a lot of it quite exposed, but maybe reinforced with some decoupage glue, just because I wanted to maintain its history and it still looks beautiful. I did reuse a lot of the pages so that I don't have to go looking for new ledger paper. French book plate, maybe even a book plate from a Catholic service book. The front cover of a 1909 Femina magazine, November 1909. Right there is the date. And this little girl just looks like a flower girl to me. And I was able to use some of Heather from Ruby and Pearl XO's Dotted Swiss and a lot of the fabric plus wallpaper that she sent me in a paper swap. So thank you, Heather. You're going to see a lot of that in here, and you'll see a lot of Heather's influence in here. It's probably a lot of binge watching lately. And this is actually a menu from Catherine at French Billet Doux. And there's a lunch and a dinner menu. The first page I was able to keep, and then I just added a simple poem for the bride in the front and some embossed paper, again from Heather. I did break the book up into 3 parts. About the couple, part 2 is planning the wedding, part 3 is the actual wedding. So part 3 will be pretty blank, because hopefully she can just fill that with papers and ephemera from the day. I lined this with a vintage silk wallpaper that I found at the antique store where I found this book. But then I have a lot of paper bits from both Heather and Kay from Kay's Vintage Ephemera. Heather, there's that Indian sari silk. It's so pretty with the pink. And then the stamp paper and the little French order form to refill an alcohol distillery. It's kind of funny, but we won't talk about that. Maybe she won't watch this. First part is about the bride, about the couple, and their house that they just bought. So some old book pages, and then this I saw in Heather's flip through of one of them. It's actually vintage maths paper, math ledger paper, and I printed it to piano paper. So I decoupaged some old piano paper with words, that old gang of mine, you can see it probably on the side there, and printed to that just because I love the aging that was already naturally there. So you'll see those throughout. Also printed them, printed wine tasting cards or placemats to the piano paper. You'll see some Vogue book pages. My brother got me the Vogue book so that I could use a lot of the images. And then a lot of the vintage wallpaper as well. First part is about the couple. I think I'm in frame. There we go. And my brother was their photographer for their engagement photos, and we went to a local winery, Domaine de Broglie, in Oregon. And so here's just some information about their flight that we had that day, and then the vineyard. We were able to walk amongst the grapevines, so I took a photo and printed it to some vintage receipt paper because I like the see-through effect. And then this is a vintage typewritten poem that I inserted into one of Mary Lou's pressed flower specimen digital downloads. Again, printed to that vintage onion paper, so it's see-through. But then the typewritten poem right there, which my cousin would never write, is actually in here, but we'll just pretend he wrote that for his fiancée. Heart and Soul. I think it's actually two different poems. You'll see ribbon for each section. So first section has the buttons and the ribbon, second chapter, new ribbon, and then the third chapter, of course. And you'll see a lot of pockets throughout that are actually made up of linen fabric sample swatches. Page for the couple. This is a French postcard of Rabbit and the Hare and the story on the back there. I don't know if that'll focus, but I thought that was sweet. I think the rabbit might be my cousin, maybe. And this is a leather postcard from Oregon City. This kid's getting spanked, which my cousin got spanked a lot as a kid, so it's actually kind of a funny detail of his history. Some paper from Heather. This is vintage music writing paper that she printed on. The bride's favorite color is red, and her birth month is April, so that's a page from a book called, I can't remember the book, but I'll put it up on the screen. Some music paper. Mario Lanza, red again being her favorite color. This is a very antique legal document. It was for a sale that had gone through, and since my cousins just purchased a house, I thought it was very fitting to be in this book. Double-sided, beautiful calligraphy. I couldn't read all of the calligraphy just because it is so intricate. Talk fast because I know the parents are creeping around and I can hear them already. But here's a Vogue layout of their new house, and she's contemplating their interior design. Vintage wallpaper from Heather's Les Artistes pack, her digital download, and then some of her vintage wallpaper. And all the ledger paper you'll see I get from Kay's Vintage Ephemera in the UK. I'm pretty consistent with her because she has some of the best quality, and I can use it for just every little bit. Bride's favorite color, so another Vogue page, and some ledger paper on the back that has been sewn so that she can do some writing throughout the book. Vintage wallpaper from Heather. French ribbons throughout are from Vintage French Ribbons on Etsy, as well as Honey Silk's Sari Silk and some of their polyester ribbon. That's a postcard from Kay that I enlarged and copied just because, again, it's red. And I just backed it with a little bit of embossed ledger from Heather. This is about planning their new home. some of the Japanese coin envelopes, which are washi taped onto the page, so they can actually reuse those for thank yous or save the dates. And then throughout, you're going to see a lot of this embossed and handmade paper from Rose Hill Paper Cottage. It's pretty addicting once you buy some of her handmade paper, so just to warn you. And then just some old book pages, maps that I printed to the piano paper, wine scoring cards. I chose that for this page just because of the old tables. So I know my cousin wants to plan a wine tasting room or a wine storage room, so that may be a good idea for them. And then this is the fountain pen page, fountain pen desk or writing desks, original to the original to the interior design book from 1954. So I just added a French ad. Authentic Western Union telegram from 1945. So you see the war savings bond stamps. And then Eco Die. You'll see Eco Die paper and postcards and doilies throughout by Ellen Martin Originals. I've used her before, and her images come out so vibrant. This is probably one of her more muted. And then here's more of that Rose Hill Paper Cottage handmade paper, which I printed Mary Lou's pressed flowers digital to and made it into a postcard. I left a few of these blank for them inside their stationery kit as well. So you'll see those throughout, and a lot more trimmings, trimmings using vintage wallpaper just to accent and to strengthen the pages, because the more I worked with the pages, especially when I was stitching the kettle stitch, it would actually start to tear. So despite its looks, it's actually quite fragile. Altered paper clip. I received a set of 4 vintage blue buttons from the south of France, Mieb. She has the best collection. She's a brown paper parcel on Etsy, so I suggest you visit her. She has a lot of haberdashery and sewing notions and just unique items, and she's really good at shipping for a good cost. And lately, mail from France and the UK is actually arriving to me faster than mail from the US, from within the US. Oops, put that together. And then digital kit from Heather, Ruby and Pearl XO. These little kids are throughout the journal because they're too cute. And her paper I just made into a coin envelope to tuck her into, with a few calendar date journal cards, which might be cute for save the dates if my cousins decide to send those out. And then this is Heather's sari ribbon that she sent as part of the paper swap, and of course I had to put the French buttons on there because it's just too pretty. French glass, also from a brown paper parcel, and then this metal filigree is from France. More of Ellen's eco-dyed paper envelope, because this section is actually for recipes. So I thought it would be a great idea to collect some recipes for the bride and groom. And this is a vintage, actually it looks more antique, recipe page of plain and fancy biscuits. This is from the UK. Kay's Vintage Ephemera sent that to me. This is the original, so I'm kind of sad to part with it, but I did make a digital copy. It has Ayrshire shortbread, coconut biscuits, ginger biscuits, milk biscuits, and Norwegian biscuits. So I hope we get to make some of those. More pockets for recipe cards, and then some Greek pages as you move into the kitchen. More wine tasting, printed to piano paper, so you can see the latest hits. Tempo was 80 and latest hits version. The price was 43 cents. And then we come to part 2, which is the Vogue cover from 1956. I did make a copy to vellum because I like the look and the see-through nature to be able to see the red in the back. And of course, the red lipstick. Oh, and this is actually a vintage 1910 candy bag saver for weddings. And I think it's called tricotine metal or tricotine thread. I'll flash that on the screen. Look how good some of these colors go. I just made some color swabs as well as some labels for the couple 2 nights ago, last minute, adding some dried flowers just to give them a palette. I know she loves red and she was wearing a purple dress, so just wanted to cut those out and use them as labels throughout the book. Those are from Mary Lou's latest Vintage Labels digital pack, so I'll flash her up on the screen so you can hit her up on Instagram. So I'm going to stop there and hopefully I can cobble together some video. Let's start with this, what do you call this? Stationery holder. This is the greeting card I made, designed based on the dress that she would like without revealing too much, but also a dress that you'll see inside that she's worn before. So I backed it with Ruby and Pearl's French blue paper and some ledger paper that she had sent me in a paper swap and wallpaper swap. So thank you very much, Heather. Inside is some embossed paper from Michaels, and then these were Vintage Labels by Mary Lou. I'll be sure to link everybody below so that you can see all of their artwork and creativity. Backed it with some ledger from Heather's French blue so I could write on it, and a little bit of that ledger paper from the front. And then from another artist kit or Les Artistes kit from Heather, Ruby and Pearl XO, I printed to Nepal paper, one of the vintage wallpapers, and backed it just so. There you go. This is something that I watched Took's craft table do. I think they call it a tuxedo pocket, but I just made it as a sample for my cousin, just so that in case they do something like this, they could keep it pretty simple. Just has a welcome, and then the location in the back. This one happens to be Domaine de Broglie, which is named after a French scientist, but the winery is here in Oregon, Dundee Hills of Oregon. The back is a map of the winery and the different grapes that they've planted for that pocket. Open it up, you've got your dessert. People like to see that first. This is actually from Maxime's menu in New York. A little envelope for drink tickets if people don't want to do the wine tasting. And then in the middle, they've actually got 2 flight options. So I printed both flight menus from Domaine de Broglie right there. did back it with a book page from the 1800s, a French book page. And this part is about planning the dress. So this is actually an old photo of Chanel sort of hemming a couture dress during one of her shows. My brother got me that picture, and then I put this vintage ledger paper as a pocket and put one of those 1800s French book pages. It's a French lady living in England writing about English gardens. And that comes true, planning the wedding on vellum. And then this is a copy from one of the 1900s magazine where I had made the peacock dress journal. Off the shoulder V-neck, had a little bit of lace just like the peacock dress, and then long and flowing. So this silhouette represented that peacock dress for me when I made that other journal. Bridge scorecard here for table settings, just in case they want to go more formal. So, some ribbon as an altered paper clip. Just like the colors a little bit more masculine, just in case. And then this is a copy from the New York Public Library's domain, digital domain. It's a cover of the Maxine, is it Maxine? It's one of the old cake shops, actually, not Maxine, sorry. It looked like it was paper mache as a cover. Actually a digital of an old Montreal cake shop. And I did print it on the vintage Ford receipt paper, and then I made an altered paper clip using some of the French blue ribbons and velvet trim I had, and just a little bit of a collage there, and then that very vintage French button that I got from Mia in the south of France. This is some of the eco-dyed paper from Ellen, and she made some doilies, which I thought was perfect for cake. And Heather, this is from your Polaroid kit. How perfect are these kids eating cake? Too cute. Blank, some from Heather's Les Artistes pack. I just want to print this every time I make a journal. It's just too pretty. The old design of a potential wallpaper. This page is all about the mother of the bride. These were some of the vintage labels that I was working on last night that I purchased from Mary Lou. Watercoloring, but I also used a lot of these dried hydrangeas from my mom's garden, and I just took each dried leaf and made sure to put a little bit of decoupage glue on them just so that they don't break apart in some of the pages. But I just love the purples, so I did a little watercoloring to make a pansy, make it look layered, and then also to make some color swatches, because again, I don't know what the bride and groom will choose for their wedding colors. And then this is a vintage sketch of some 1950s, is that 1950 gowns. And I thought that might be pretty for a mother of the bride. And this is from Heather's French Blue digital kit. I just thought that was really nice. Oh, and these are vintage mother of pearl buttons on a card. And I have a few left, and look how raggedy old they are. So I made it into an altered paper clip. So they are usable just in case they need a few buttons. This is all about the bride's planning. This is that embossed paper I used for her greeting card on the inside. I thought she might want to use that for something. And then this is also from Heather's French Blue. It just looks so bridal. And this is a 1945 or 44 Time magazine, Life magazine cover. It happens to be the same size as the French magazines. But Life magazine 1945. What's that? French page. This is from Postal Love, one of the old 1920s French magazines that I get from her. Lingerie. Backed it because this page is very brittle. Just a little blue, French blue. And then this is actually another digital that I got from Heather. And it's the most sweet but very old poem about getting married. Still follow each other like surge upon surge. And then this is a invitation or announcement that I got also from New York Public Library's digital domain, and it comes from a mother, Mrs. George Frederick Jones. Requests the honor of your presence at the marriage of her daughter. And then some of the painting watercolor that I did using the vintage labels and some of the dried hydrangea. You'll see these linen pockets everywhere. I just like that as an interior designer you would know what these are. Little swatches from your samples everywhere. And that's what this book is meant to look like. Interior designer's idea book. So you see layers and layers of fabric sticking out and pages sticking out. And I figured the bride would be sticking in her ideas and replacing the ones that I put in here. Mid-century kitchen. Another eco-dyed card from Ellen Martin. I thought this one actually might make a nice menu or invitation. Look at that color. And this is the pressed flowers digital that I got from Mary Lou. And I thought it would be a sweet idea to put the menu inside. I printed it on that vintage Ford paper, so it's very see-through. Love that. And then this menu is also from the New York Public Library, 1901. Oh, June, which will be the same month that they'll have their wedding. June of 1896. So the New York Public Library obtained it in 1901. And cake. Can't forget the cake. And then I just kind of made it like a letter. And then this is just 1960s vintage wrapping paper, bridal wrapping paper. Just like the color. This is the old piano paper that I was playing with. I just printed it to some of my brother's old ledger paper. No, actually, this is the old maths paper from Two Silver Oranges. I got that idea from Heather also. And the bride is a book. She loves school. She has her master's. She probably will get her PhD one day because she loves to learn so much. This represents your bridesmaids. I like that the piano paper has words from the songs. They were the best pals that I ever had. Look at that math page. Piano paper, partially glued on there. French pages from 1909 for the Flower Girls. And this, of course, comes from Heather's little Polaroids of the little girls. Look at them. They are too cute. And I made it into sort of a folding or a tri-fold back with ledger paper, but I used one of these somewhere in the journal, and that's why there's only 2 left. But it is perforated in case she wants to use them as cards. And then some polka dots, because I like these ads, these French ads. Promenade de Parisienne. Staff, story about your staff. Some games if you want to plan some games for the wedding. Of course, all from the French Femina magazine. Your guest list. I use these little tags that I painted and put the dried flowers on as little prompts for the bride, just in case they want to think about things like the guest list. Formal wear or casual. I'm hoping it's casual. Planning your music and entertainment. Planning your menu. What if it has a little bit of an Asian flair? This is again the pressed flowers specimen kit from Mary Lou that I printed on the inside.